Thank you. Gold Annual General Meeting. Only mood. It gives me great pleasure to have Alex Borelli in London. Good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Now yours, At.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you. It is now just after 12 noon London time on Wednesday, 6th of December 2023. I'd like to welcome you to the annual general meeting of the members of Greatland Gold PLC. Today we welcome shareholders present at the meeting at the offices, our registered office at Druce's LLP, Suite 45, Salisbury House, London Wall, London. This meeting is being recorded to facilitate viewing by shareholders virtually through the Investor Meet Company platform. The meeting will be conducted through the offices of our colleagues based in Perth. I'd first like to remind you of the housekeeping duties. Please keep your mobile phones off at this stage. Thank you very much. And in cases of emergency, fire, or whatever, we will be accompanied by Druce's staff who look after us. I declare we have a quorum, and therefore I declare the meeting open. And I have pleasure in handing over the conducting of the meeting to the chairman of the company, Mark Barnaby.
Thank you, Alex. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Great pleasure to be here today. Let me kick off firstly by introducing the Greatland Gold representatives that we have attending in person and virtually. You will note that there are a number of us that are here in Perth, Western Australia. We're attending virtually. We felt that that was the correct decision to make in light of the expense of travelling to the UK, and we felt that it would be better justified that we do travel to the UK and spend time with all our shareholders when we can attend one of the company's town hall events, which we look forward to doing in the very near future. So attending virtually from our offices here in Perth in Western Australia are myself, Mark Barnaby, your chairman. On my immediate right, Elizabeth Gaines, Deputy Chairman, Non-Executive Director. On my immediate left, Sean Day, our Managing Director. On my far right, Yasmin Broughton, Non-Executive Director. And on my far left, Paul Hallam, Non-Executive Director. We also have attending virtually from Sydney, Australia, Jimmy Wilson, Executive Director. Jimmy is in Sydney for a board meeting and board duties for Export Finance Australia, but is joining us. So thank you for being there in Sydney, Jimmy. And attending in person in London, as you've just heard, Alex Borelli, our Senior Non-Executive Director, and Stephen Ronaldson of Druce's, our Company Secretary. So let me start the formal proceedings of this annual general meeting. Thank you. The notice of meeting together with explanatory notes was posted to shareholders on the 9th of November this year. Accordingly, the requisite notice of the meeting has been given. I propose, therefore, that the notice of meeting should be taken as read, and I'll proceed on that basis. So thank you. I'd like to turn to the main business of the meeting, and I'd like to just remind you all that in the meeting that resolutions 1 to 8 are proposed as ordinary resolutions requiring a simple majority to be passed. Resolutions 9 and 10, however, are proposed as special resolutions requiring a majority of 75% to vote in favour of the resolution. I would now like to turn to the first resolution. So thank you. Resolution 1 is to receive the annual report for the year ended 30 June 2023. The company is required to present its report and accounts to shareholders at its annual general meeting. And before putting the resolution to the meeting, may I ask if there are any questions on this resolution from the floor, and if so, please direct them to my fellow director, Alex Borelli, who introduced the meeting itself, who's physically present in London. Any questions?
There are no questions at this end, Mark. Thank you.
Okay. The proxy votes on the resolution are displayed on the screen. Thank you, Rowan. For those in the room, please raise your hands to vote. Those in favour?
Unanimous votes here.
It is. Those against? None?
No one.
Okay. Thank you. Taken with the proxy votes, I can declare that Resolution 1 has been carried by the necessary majority. As Resolution 2 regards the reappointment of myself as a director, I will hand over in a moment to our Deputy Chair, Elizabeth Gaines, to chair the meeting for this resolution. But before doing so, by way of introduction, I was appointed as a director and chairman of Greatland Gold in December last year. Coincidentally, tomorrow marks the first anniversary of my appointment. It's certainly been an exciting and productive 12 months. By way of background, I have had a career in finance and mining. I currently serve as Deputy Chairman and Lead Independent Director of Fortescue Mining. I have previously served 2 terms on the Reserve Bank of Australia Board, the central bank for Australia, and for the last 30 years have been involved in finance and in mining all over the world, in Africa, Canada, the United States, Europe, and Australia. Certainly, I regard it as a privilege to be on this board, even more of a privilege to serve as the chair, and I'm extremely excited about the year ahead. I'll hand over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mark. Resolution 2 regards the reappointment of Mark Barnaba as a director and is retiring in accordance with the company's articles, and being eligible, Mark offers himself for reappointment at this annual general meeting. And the board is recommending that Mark Barnaba be reappointed as a director. The resolution will be put to the meeting, but before doing so, I will be pleased to answer any questions you may have in relation to the reappointment of Mark Barnaba. Any questions?
No questions in London.
Thank you, Alex. So as there are no questions, I shall now put Resolution 2 to the meeting, and I do propose that Mark Barnaba be reappointed as a director. The proxy votes on this resolution are displayed on the screen. And for those of you in the room, please raise your hand to vote. So those in favour?
Everyone voting in favour.
Lovely, thank you. So that is taken with the proxy votes, and I declare Resolution 2 carried by the necessary majority. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you. Okay, musical chairs. Resolution 3 is regarding the reappointment of Elizabeth Gaines as a director, retiring in accordance with the company's articles, and being eligible, Elizabeth offers herself for reappointment at this annual general meeting. The board is recommending that Elizabeth Gaines be reappointed as a director. This is Elizabeth's first annual general meeting as a director and deputy chairman of Greatland Gold. Before the resolution is put to the meeting, I'm going to hand over to Elizabeth to simply say a few words and introduce herself. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mark, and it is my pleasure to be attending my first Greatland Gold annual general meeting, having been appointed to the board 12 months ago. I think it's also my first anniversary tomorrow. And just by way of background, I have extensive mining sector experience, and that includes spending the last 11 years with Fortescue, where more recently I was the Chief Executive Officer of Fortescue and now have a role as an Executive Director and Global Ambassador. So many of you may be familiar with Fortescue. It's an iron ore producer, one of the largest iron ore producers in the world. We operate in the same region as Greatland's assets, so Pilbara region of Western Australia, as some of our key assets, and it's an area that I'm very familiar with, both in an operational sense, strong government relations here in Western Australia, and sector experience. So I'm very much looking forward to continuing to serve you as a director, and it's certainly a privilege, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Before the resolution is put to the meeting, I should be pleased to answer any questions that you may have in regard to the reappointment of Elizabeth. Any questions?
No questions in London.
Okay, thank you, Alex. If obviously there are no questions, I shall put Resolution 3 to the meeting. I now propose that Elizabeth Gaines be reappointed as a director. The proxy votes on this resolution are displayed on the screen. For those in the room, please raise your hands to vote. Those in favour?
Unanimous voting here.
Thank you, Alex. Taken with the proxy votes, I declare Resolution 3 carried by the necessary majority. Congratulations, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Resolution 4. Resolution 4 is regarding the reappointment of Yasmin Broughton as a director, retiring in accordance with the company's articles and being eligible. Yasmin offers herself for reappointment at this annual general meeting. The board is recommending that Yasmin be reappointed as a director. And again, this is Yasmin's first annual general meeting as director of Greatland Gold. Before the resolution is put to the meeting, I'd like to hand over to Yasmin to also introduce herself. Yasmin.
Thank you, Mark. Yasmin Broughton, very excited to be here. I joined the board in May this year, and it's a great privilege to work with the board and the very talented management team. By way of background, I'm a corporate lawyer specialising in mergers and acquisitions, fundraising and corporate governance. I've also worked in the gold sector for several years and also mining generally. Very excited to be working with Greatland and looking forward to the year ahead as well. So thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Yasmin. Before the resolution is put to the meeting, I would be pleased to answer any questions that anyone may have in regards to the reappointment of Yasmin. Any questions?
No questions in London.
Okay, thanks, Alex. On that basis, I shall put Resolution 4 to the meeting, and I now propose that Yasmin Broughton be reappointed as a director. The proxy votes on this resolution are displayed on the screen. For those in the room, those in favour, please raise your hands.
Unanimous voting in London.
Terrific. Thank you, Alex. Taken with the proxy votes, I declare Resolution 4 carried by the necessary majority. Congratulations, Yasmin.
Thank you.
Okay, Resolution 5 is regarding the reappointment of Sean Day as a director, retiring in accordance with the company's articles and being eligible. Sean also offers himself for reappointment at this annual general meeting. The board is recommending that Sean be reappointed as a director. Look, you all know Sean well, and you hear from him often. He will be giving a presentation at the conclusion of the formal matters. Sean, are there any particular comments that you would like to make on your reappointment?
Only to say thank you for the support. I've been with the company since we started the box cut in February 2021. It's been a pleasure and an honour, and continue to enjoy it very much. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Sean. The resolution we put to the meeting, but again, as is custom before doing so, I'd be pleased to answer any questions that anyone may have regarding the appointment of Sean. Any questions?
We're just being asked if the slide could be moved on to Resolution 5. And do you have any questions in the room? No questions here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In which case, I shall put Resolution 5 to the meeting. I now propose that Sean Day be reappointed as the director. The proxy votes on this resolution, again, are displayed on the screen. For those of you in the room, for those in favour, please raise your hands.
Oh, we've all done it twice. It's certainly unanimous here.
Okay, all right, terrific. Sean, you get the double treatment.
Thank you.
Taken with the proxy votes, I declare Resolution 5 carried by the necessary majority, and congratulations, Sean.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, Resolution 6. Resolution 6 is regarding the reappointment of PKF Littlejohn LLP as auditors of the company to act until the conclusion of the next annual general meeting. Before I put Resolution 6 to the meeting, are there any questions?
No questions here.
Okay, in which case, I shall now put Resolution 6 to the meeting. I propose that PKF Littlejohn LLP be reappointed as auditors. The proxy votes for this resolution are displayed on the screen. And again, for those of you in the room, please raise your hands, those in favour.
Unanimous voting in London.
Wonderful, thank you. Taken with the proxy votes, I declare Resolution 6 carried by the necessary majority. Okay, Resolution 7 authorises the directors to determine the auditor's remuneration. Before I put Resolution 7 to the meeting, are there any questions on this resolution?
No questions in London.
Okay, thank you. In which case, I'll put Resolution 7 to the meeting. Now. I propose that the directors are authorised to determine the rem of the auditors. The proxy votes on this resolution are displayed on the screen. For those in the room in favour, please raise your hands.
Unanimous voting in London.
Okay. Taken with the proxy votes, I declare that Resolution 7 has been carried by the necessary majority. So thank you. Resolution 8 relates to the general authority to issue shares. Before the directors are able to issue shares, they must first be authorised by shareholders to do so. This resolution, if passed, will grant authority for the directors to issue new shares, as is in line with investor guidelines. The authority would permit allotments of new shares up to a nominal value of Great British pounds, 1,679,824, and that is approximately 1,679,824,000 shares, and it represents approximately 33% of the issued share capital. This authority replaces previous authorities that expire at the end of the AGM or within 15 months. Whilst the directors have no present intention of exercising this authority, the authority gives directors the flexibility to issue shares where they believe it is in the best interests of the company to do so. Before proposing the resolution, are there any questions?
No questions in London.
Okay. On there being no questions, I shall now put the resolution to the meeting. I propose that the resolution be authorised to allot shares in accordance with the terms set out in Resolution 8. The proxy votes on this resolution are displayed on the screen. For those of you in the room, those in favour, please raise your hands.
Unanimous voting in London.
Thank you. In which case, taken with the proxy votes, I declare Resolution 8 carried by the necessary majority. Resolution 9. Resolution 9 will give the directors authority to allot shares for cash without first offering them to existing shareholders in proportion to their existing holding of shares up to a nominal amount of Great British pounds, 509,038, being 10% of the issued share capital. This is in line with the Statement of Principles published by the Preemption Group in November 2022. However, there is no current intention to issue the new shares for cash, but this resolution provides a degree of flexibility to finance business opportunities. The opportunity will expire at the end of next year's annual general meeting or within 15 months. The proxy votes on this resolution are displayed on the screen. For those in the room again, for those in favour, please raise your hands to vote.
Unanimous voting and no questions either.
Okay. Taken with the proxy votes, I therefore declare Resolution 9 carried by the necessary majority. Thank you. The final resolution for the formal part of the business of the meeting is Resolution 10. Resolution 10 will give directors authority to allot shares for an acquisition or specified capital investment as defined in the statement of principles without first offering them to existing shareholders in proportion to their existing holding of shares up to a further nominal amount of Great British pounds 509,038, being 10% of the issued share capital. The authority will expire at next year's annual general meeting or within 15 months. Are there any questions from the floor?
No questions in London.
Thank you. Let me therefore put this to the meeting. The proxy votes on this resolution are displayed on the screen. For those of you again in the room, please raise your hands to vote. Those in favour?
Unanimous voting in favour in London.
Thank you. Taken with the proxy votes, I declare resolution 10 carried by the necessary majority. That concludes the 10 resolutions. What I'd like to now do is hand over to the chairing of this meeting itself, to Alex Borelli again, to provide some concluding remarks. Alex.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending today's annual general meeting of the company. I'd like to welcome the re-elected directors back to the board of the company and look forward to another year of great progress with them. And I declare the meeting formally closed and pass the meeting now to Sean Day.
Thanks, Alex.
Sean, hold on just a moment. We've got a hand raised, but there will be questions after Sean Day's presentation. So if we do that, that's it. After the presentation. Very good. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Mark, for chairing the meeting and for shareholders taking the time to participate in the annual general meeting. I'll be doing a quick presentation. I will try to, I'm aware that we have a number of questions received, so I'll try to move through the presentation quite quickly, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end, including from the floor. Just to begin with, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land in which we operate. They are the partners that we share across our operations, and we're grateful for that, the support and that partnership we have. In terms of the Greatland itself, I won't spend any time kind of going through the commodities themselves in today's presentation, but I think it is important to understand that we have a balance of around 75 to 80% gold and 20 to 25% copper, and we really enjoy that diversification. And both in terms of the exposure we have to gold and the geopolitical opportunity that provides, but also with copper, in that I think there's not a better metal to participate in the energy transition. So I think it's a beautiful commodity mix. In terms of an overview of the company, as I mentioned, we are this high-grade gold and copper company. Just down the road, we have the existing Telfer infrastructure, and we're able to leverage that for the development of our core asset, Havieron. We've already identified a JORC resource of 6.5 million ounces gold equivalent, and that really underpins this very long life opportunity with Havieron. And we retain the exploration upside to continue to grow that, both around Paterson, and we've also extended that with the Rio Tinto transaction, and we have a broader suite of exploration assets. And then finally, we've invested in the team, both at a board level but also at a management team, to really make the most and give us the highest probability of taking advantage of the platform that we have. I always like to orientate around strategy, and there's really three horizons to our strategy. One is deliver on an expanded Havieron. Secondly, to continue to invest in the drill bit, and we really think we have some exceptional exploration optionality within the portfolio. And thirdly, corporate development, where we think we have a great team to take advantage of financially disciplined opportunities to grow the company. In terms of the history of the company, I won't kind of plan to step through all of this, but I think what we should do is celebrate the last 12 months that we've had. We've been able to, it seems quite some time ago, but we're able to resolve the 5% optionality that we had within the joint venture agreement successfully and get the best possible outcome, which was retaining the full 30% ownership of Havron. On the back of that, we were able to bring in institutional shareholders with an equity raise. We also brought in a strategic shareholder with Wailu, and that's a really strong relationship. We also expanded our board. We brought in the chairman, Mark Barnabar, our deputy chair, Elizabeth Gaines, but also we had Jimmy Wilson join an executive role this year, and plus Yasmin Broughton come in as well as another independent director. So it's really kind of been a huge achievement for us. We're also able to put in place support with a group of international banks, ANZ, HSBC, ING. So there's been, and during all of that time, we've also continued the development of the company and the Havron asset. In terms of the team itself, I think it is worth pausing on that team that we've put together. I've just mentioned the new directors we've had come in, but also Paul, Alex and Clive, who have been with me for a number of years. We think we have an exceptional board, and that is hugely important in terms of taking advantage of the opportunities that we have. And we have a tremendous relationship with our board. And then with the management team, in a market where it's been incredibly difficult to attract talent, I think we've done nothing less than an exceptional job at bringing in a management team, and all of the people on that board within that management team, or my colleagues have worked with before. And it's been a destination to come to Greatland because of the team we've put together, because of the asset we have, and because of the opportunity we have to leverage this platform. And I think the team we've put together is one of the huge achievements we've made over the last couple of years. In terms of, we are listed in London, but we've also have talked to the market about at the right time expanding that footprint to add a complementary ASX listing, so remaining listing in London, but also adding an Australian listing. And I think it's important to see where we sit with those peers and to understand the value creation opportunity that we think that presents. And that's something that we continue to think about, but we also, our number one objective is to do what's in the interest of our existing shareholder base, but we'll continue to think through the opportunity to add an ASX listing and to bring in a new group of shareholders to augment the support we already enjoy in London. With that, I'll just turn to the asset itself. On screen is that box cut that we put in February 2021. And really, since then, we've extended the underground development. And if we move to the next slide, I think that shows it very well. We're around 80% of the development through that Permian layer to advance to the top of the ore body. That's a hugely important focus and de-risking for the company. And what we've been able to do during this last 2.5 years of development of the decline, we've been able to go through 2 of the aquifers, and we're just starting to come into the 3rd aquifer, put in the ventilation, and we've also moved through that Permian layer. And as we've always described to people, as you move deeper through that Permian layer, you enjoy better mining conditions. With depth, you have more time, pressure and heat, and that ground is more consolidated. And you see that with our mining, with the cut length and the productivity of our mining accelerating as we've moved through that decline, we're presently in a situation where we're standing off and dewatering that lower decline. We're taking advantage of this to put in place 2 raise bores to complete the primary ventilation. But also we feel very well placed once we've dewatered that lower aquifer that we continue to have accelerated mining speed into the country rock and into the Havieron ore body itself. With that, I think just to talk about some of the strengths of the Havieron ore body, and I think this is a really important slide just to demonstrate this, and it's that 86% conversion rate. This is from the existing resource into the mine plan, 86%. That is the best number I've seen in my career. You would normally expect an underground mine to be converting around 55, maybe up to 65% conversion, maybe an open pit up to 75%. But this speaks volumes as to the quality of the ore body and its compact nature. Because of this subvertical nature and its relatively compact structure and grade, we're able to take big stope vertical cuts. That allows us to have an average stope size of around 125,000 tonnes. They are big underground stopes, and that delivers a mining cost around half the Australian underground sector average. And that all feeds into most of this ore body coming into the mine plan. The next slide is probably my favourite slide, and this goes to the ounces per vertical metre. This is a wonderful kind of rule of thumb to understand the quality of an underground mine. This is running plus 8,000 ounces per vertical metre through that top 500 metres of the ore body. The y-axis shows you that is a function of the metres drilled. Where we've drilled, we've identified and been able to delineate a JORC resource. What I think is really exciting about this is we intend to come up with an updated mineral resource estimate this calendar year, so in the December 23 quarter. And those green on that Y database, that stack chart, that green shading, that is the additional 80,000 metres we've drilled. The centre of gravity for that drilling is actually towards the lower half of this ore body. So that's really going to be, really good to bring that into the mine plan, delineating more at depth, and we think you get a more consistent profile of ounces per vertical metre across the ore body. And 8,000 ounces per vertical metre is exceptional. It drives an incredibly efficient capital intensity, because for every vertical metre you're developing, you're accessing over 8,000 ounces of ore, but also it drives an incredibly low all-in sustaining cost. And you saw in the PFS, we had a $643 US an ounce all-in sustaining cost, which puts us in the bottom 3 or the lowest 3 cost mines in Australia. And just finally on the ore body, I think it's really important to understand it. And I think having a look at it in plan does describe it to you. We've really centred for now around that southeast cream, which is this high grade, and that's where we're going to put the infrastructure right next to that. But then we have this huge option value about taking advantage of the northern breccia plus that eastern breccia. That northern breccia has these number of high grade pod structures, and it gives us optionality as to whether we go in there and bulk that out, remembering we have a really large latent processing capacity at surface, or we can go in and be selective and take out the high grade features. Similarly with that eastern breccia, we have that same optionality. It's always good to have choices in mining methodology, but you see a more consistent and higher grade through that eastern breccia. And I think that's potentially a lot of the growth in the updated MRE is through that whole new eastern breccia, where we've been, we really did focus some of the drilling over the last 18 months. With that, I'll just talk briefly to the exploration program that we have, and I'll do this in 2 parts. I think firstly we want to talk about the Patterson. And this is the opportunity along strike from Havron. The structures through the Patterson tend to run in a northwest structure, so horizontally across the page. So we already have that ground across Scallywag and into the Jury joint venture. But then what we're able to do this year is to have a preferred bilateral agreement with Rio Tinto, where we came in and became the manager of their ground in the south of the Patterson. This is a pretty standard 7-year earn-in and joint venture agreement. And we really feel this is the best untested ground in the Patterson. And its centre of gravity is around the Telfer Mill. You can see the circumference there of 50 kilometres, which gives us a huge opportunity, if successful, to actually be able to augment what we're doing with Havron, what we're doing with the Telfer infrastructure with any new discovery there. So we think this is hugely on strategy, but also really enhances the option value of exploration within our portfolio. I'll then jump across, just in the interest of time, to slide 17, where we have, the next slide, where we have the overview of our broader exploration opportunity. And Ernest Giles, it's been a little bit of a slow burn, but I think the team did a tremendous job. And we talked about the recognition of our traditional owner partners at the start of this presentation. We did a tremendous job to come to an agreement with the first agreement the Wakamira people have ever had. And it's testament to the geology team and the heritage team that we were able to achieve that. This lights up like a Christmas tree with the geophysics. It's undercover, which is really the competitive strength or our competitive advantage that we have within that exploration team. We've had a drill rig on there through November, and we're really looking forward to getting the assays and sharing them with shareholders in due course. And that really creates a whole new exploration front for us. Panorama, we had the recent announcement around the nickel. Look, we feel Panorama is prospective for both gold and base metals. As it happens in a program that did find a little bit of gold opportunity, really the story of that was the nickel that we picked up in the sampling. There's conductive or confluences of conductor and gravity anomalies sitting under that nickel, which we're finding at surface. I think they become really interesting targets for us during the course of 2024. And there's lots of ways to think about creating value if we have ongoing success around Panorama. And then Bromus is an area that we haven't explored in the past. We are going to get boots on the ground during 2024. And we think, again, this is gold plus other metals opportunity. And we've been active in how we think about our portfolio. Also, during the year, we let go of the Tasmanian assets, but we're able to vend them into Flynn Gold, who we feel has a focus and a competitive advantage in Tasmania. And with the transaction structure, the equity we have in Flynn Gold and also the earnouts, we have ongoing participation in that success. So we're active managers of this portfolio, but we think it's really advantageous, and we're going to continue to look at ways to manage that and potentially add to it when there are other opportunities. And that concludes my presentation, and I'll now pass back across to Alex and open up the floor for questions.
That's great. Maybe if I could just jump in. Firstly, thank you, Sean, for your presentation, and thank you to all the investors that have submitted questions so far and also pre-submitted questions ahead of today's event. Alex, it may be prudent for us to start with any questions that you have from any shareholders in the room, and then I'll present some questions to Sean and the team thereafter.
Yes, thank you, Sean, for that. And I'd also like to introduce Clive Latcham, non-exec director, who actually joined us for the meeting. And we have one question from a shareholder in the room. If you'd like to put your 3 questions.
3 questions, please.
Well, just give us the first one. Yes.
Can I first start by saying that as a long-term shareholder, I'm relieved to attend the AGM. We have moved away from the dreadful 6p share price. I thank you, Sean, and the team for the work you've carried out since the last AGM and for coming to London for the town hall meetings. I hope you will be able to continue to do those meetings in future. So my first question is...
Just to interrupt, can you hear the wording correctly, adequately?
Yeah.
Okay. If you'd like, you can stand up and come a bit nearer the microphone, please. Thank you.
Please would you confirm whether there's any further slippage to the declaration of the MRE update? Secondly, following on from the last AGM, could you comment or follow up on buying another asset with a clear path to production? And this is my key question here. On a vulnerability regarding a takeover at a low share price, particularly for PIs who have bought shares in the 20p's. You've heard of the previous concerns about that, but noting that our market capitalisation at around 11p is already over 570 million, but with no revenue expected for a number of years. Can you allay some of those concerns?
I would say thank you to you for your questions. You raised three questions. If we could put those back to Sean very quickly. The first one was the MRE update. Is there going to be slippage on that? I know Sean has just tabled that the MRE update would be in the December 2023 quarter. I suppose the question is, what do you mean by the December 2023 quarter, and is there going to be slippage from that? So should we just address that one, Sean? I think we've been cut out. Mark, are you?
Yes, bear with us just 1 second. We're just reconnecting the Perth office to the meeting. Just do give us one moment, and we will connect them back in.
Thank you.
Do bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. We are just reconnecting now. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you guys in Perth. Can you hear us back now?
We can hear you well.
Lovely. Alex, if I may just ask you to retable the question. Thank you.
Yes.
We heard the questions.
We got the questions.
So, Alex, I'll just go straight through and answer those questions. So, in terms of the MRE, by way of background, I think people recall that Newcrest had undertaken to update their the Havieron MRE in August 2023, together with their universe of assets. For whatever confluence of reasons, they didn't provide an update. They simply restated the 2022 MRE. Subsequent to that, Greatland undertook to update the MRE in the December 2023 quarter, which I recognise we're presently in. I think we also explained at that time that what was really important to us is, one, that we had the time to complete that work to our satisfaction. Two, that we reviewed it by an external independent expert. And three, that we had peer review and the proper time to engage with our joint venture partner for their input and support. So our shareholders should be confident that we still have a clear intent to release that MRE in this December quarter, so within the next, I guess, 3 weeks. But equally that we are progressing those, what I outlined there, and all of those steps are really important to us. In terms of the second question on asset and free cash flow, yeah, I think I answer that by referring back to the 3 horizons of strategy, and the third horizon there is to consider financially disciplined acquisitions. In my career across Sakari, Straits Resources and Northern Star, all of them started as single asset organisations, and we grew them to be multi-asset, multi-billion-dollar platforms. I think with the expertise we have, we are certainly interested in financially disciplined acquisition. all of those entities I was associated with returned between 5.6 times and 13.2 times multiple of invested capital to shareholders. So that's certainly something that we are interested in, and we'll continue to kind of think about that from a very financially disciplined perspective. But we also celebrate that we have this organic growth profile with Havron, and that is a focus for us. And then if I can move to the third question, vulnerability to a takeover bid. Look, we recognise that Havron is a world-class asset in a tier 1 jurisdiction, lowest quartile costs, and we've developed, somewhere around 80% of it. And that narrows our pathway to free cash flow, and it's attractive. So having said that, our focus is around creating value for shareholders. It's my job to convey to the market the narrative of the opportunity that Greatland presents. And, that is our best defence, is to be able to explain that message and give shareholders and potential new institutional shareholders and retail shareholders the opportunity to buy in. And I think what's been really gratifying for me is we've seen that slow trend of more and more institutional shareholders recognising the transaction, the value of the portfolio and Havron, and buying into it, augment that long-standing retail support that we enjoy. With that, unless there's any other questions from the floor, I'll open up to the Investor Meet Company questions.
That's the questions from, those are the questions from London. So over to Investor Greet with the questions.
Great. Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Sean, given the significant attendance on today's calls, it's no surprise that you've had lots of questions, and I think what we've tried to do here is try to thematically put these to you for the best use of your time this morning. And I know you've touched on a number of these points. You've just touched on the MRE update, for example. So if I may just start off with the first question, which talks around your strategic plans. You've touched on that in your presentation. The question reads as follows. I've been holding Greatland Gold for the last 3 years, and I'd like to understand better your 1, 3, 5, 10-year view, particularly around share price, maybe your aspirations there and assets in the portfolio.
Yeah, look, I think I'd talk about our strategy in terms of those 3 horizons of the expanded Havron, investing in the drill bit, and opportunistic growth. But in the short term, I think we have a number of catalysts. I think I've been asked that question as well, so why don't I weave that in? Look, we think we come into a very catalyst-rich period in the next 12 months. We have the drilling results coming out for Scallywag, but also Ernst Giles, which is a full new frontier. We just talked about the updated mineral resource estimate. That's an additional 80,000 metres of drilling, so really about another, adding another 30% to that drilling inventory. We have a feasibility study expected to come out. We hit the top of the Havron ore body. We achieve first ore, plus we can explore that ASX listing opportunity. So I think in the short term, that's how we think about the strategy and the value creation. In the medium term, the shift of Havron into free cash flow, and then augmenting that with that third pillar and second pillar of continued exploration success coupled with financially disciplined opportunity. And in the longer term, we believe we have a multi-decade asset. That is the mainstay of Havron, and I think that is exceptional when you look at the average mine life of assets in the mid-cap place. It's around 6.5 years. So to have a multi-decade backbone to our organisation is a huge competitive advantage.
That's great, thank you. And as you say, you've taken the second kind of category of questions, which is about upcoming milestones and catalysts. If I could just turn to Scallywag and the delay, the question is, as per the RNS stated on the 25th of July 2023, it stated the following: the holes are currently being processed and assays will be reported when available. Just if you can give any colour around that, I guess.
Yeah, look, thanks for the question. Look, firstly, I think your expectation should be that Scallywag results will be available within a short number of weeks, so next week or so, or the week after. I think it's probably also worth explaining that those holes are coming out subsequent to the South Patterson holes, notwithstanding they were drilled first. To be open with people, we decided to prioritise the South Patterson drilling with us spotting the queue at the assay lab. And the reason for that is South Patterson was a whole new area for that. We have heritage clearance to continue that exploration program into 2024. That was the prioritised for our exploration team. So we actually switched them around, which is why the Scallywag is a little bit slower. We've also been back on Scallywag and we've undertaken a MT survey, so more geotechnical data. But I think in simple answer to that question is they'll be out very shortly.
That's great, thank you. Let's turn to processing and the Rio joint venture. We have a JV with Rio Tinto. In the event of a discovery, where will any future production be processed?
Yeah, well, look, again, we're really, I think, justifiably proud that we're able to complete that transaction with Rio Tinto and be a preferred counterparty with Rio Tinto in the Patterson. The centre for gravity of that holdings, as I mentioned during the presentation, is within this 50-kilometre radius of Telfer. And I think, as with all things in mining, it's good to have options. And that gives us the option of potentially building our own plant, but also the option of bringing it through Telfer. So I think given Telfer is scheduled not to be full from mid-2024 onwards, I think that presents a natural home for that product. And having that existing infrastructure to leverage lowers the bar of the quality you need to discover to create economic value. And this is why we think that Patterson Holdings was or Rio Tinto Patterson Holdings was such a good fit for Greatland.
That's great, thank you. Let's turn to Havieron, if I may. Can you discuss the progress at the decline and the lower aquifer?
Yeah, look, thanks for the question. I think when we think about the progress at Havieron, we should understand the context of just how expedited this has been. This was a discovery by the Greatland team in 2018. In 2019, we entered the farming and joint venture agreement with Newcrest. Less than 2 years later, in February 2021, we've started the box cut and commenced the decline down to the ore body. That is a remarkable process and I think reflects the conviction that both joint venture partners had in the quality of Havieron. So we continue to develop Havieron. We're some 80% of the way through that Permian layer, and as shareholders recall, the top 50 metres of that is a really difficult part of the mining profile. But now being some 300 plus metres deep, we're enjoying reasonably good mining conditions, and certainly when you get into the country rock, they are excellent conditions. In terms of what we've done with the rescheduling, we have come across that the known lower aquifer. We successfully navigated the high aquifer. We successfully navigated the middle aquifer, and we're now working through the lower aquifer. And the approach to all three have been the same: to stand off, to do initial depressurization, and then to do subsequent dewatering drilling, and then pumping that water out so we can drill through a relatively dry profile. And just to explain what aquifers are to people, this is just porous rocks. It's rocks where there is more water generation than you normally expect through the rest of that Permian profile. We are set up to handle that water, but it is prudent, and Greatland supported the standoff so we could work within a reasonable margin of safety. And really, we still believe we'll be moving through that through the June and September quarter of this year. Of 2024, I should say.
Thanks, Sean. Let's turn to the next section of questions, which is really around prioritisation of the opportunities that you have. I'll read this question out in full. A good problem to have, but I often consider Greatland to be an embarrassment of riches in a good way. How can the multitude of already owned opportunities be efficiently dealt with in the near term?
Well, firstly, thank you for the question. But look, Havron is a real centrepiece for us. That is a natural focus for us, but it's around how do we augment that and how do we optimise the value from the balance of the portfolio. And I think I mentioned before about being an active manager of our portfolio. And this is, when I talk about being active, we're both really pleased to bring new assets in. And the best prime example of that is that Rio Tinto joint venture through the South Paterson. But equally, we're not afraid to release assets from the structure when we don't think we have a competitive advantage to create value. And we did that with the Tasmanian assets. And then something like Panorama has somewhat thrown up an unexpected turn here, where we've gone out and we've really uncovered some really interesting nickel prospectivity. There are multiple ways to create value from that nickel. Of course, at one end of the spectrum is, if we continue to be successful there, is developing it and operating an asset. But equally, you can look at monetising that if we think that is a better pathway for shareholders. So we think about optimising that portfolio in terms of value for shareholders and within the management bandwidth and organisational capacity that we have.
Thank you. If I may, let's turn to Newmont in the Paterson. The question reads as follows. Hi, Sean. Having listened to an interview with Roger Mason of Antipa, who also have a JV with Newmont in the Paterson, he seemed very bullish on the case for Newmont to develop the Paterson in general. Now that you have a chance to bed in your relationship with Newmont, do you share those sentiments? And if so, can you see it impacting on your current position in the Havron JV?
Yeah, thank you. Look, the relationship with Newmont is hugely important to us. We really welcome them into the joint venture. The Newmont team is a group I've worked with previously in prior roles, so I bring a pre-existing relationship to that. But we think culturally there is a tremendous alignment between Greatland and Newmont. And really over the last, I think it's really just been 4 weeks since Newmont's taken the keys as our joint venture partner at Havron, we couldn't speak more highly of that team, both in terms of the engagement and also the technical expertise that they've brought to the table. As part of the question, you asked about Newmont's commitment to the region and their interest in the Paterson. Their CEO, Tom Palmer, came out with describing the Paterson as one of the great mining postcodes of the world. So look, we really look forward to creating a multi-decade relationship with Newmont. We value them as a partner. We think we can contribute to that relationship as well. Our team is dedicated and focused on Havron, and we've been here right through that cycle since February 2021 and beforehand with Discovery. And we think together we have an amazing platform to be successful, and I'm up at site in the next few days with the Newmont team, and it's all part of us going a journey together and building that relationship. But it's certainly been off to a tremendous start.
That's great, thank you. Just turning to your ASX listing. Hi, Sean. The proposed cross-listing on ASX, is it still expected to complete in 2024?
Look, the cross-listing is something that we think is potentially value enhancing for shareholders. So it's something that we continue to be interested in. We're really pleased with the progress that we made. We engaged with the ASX and I think effectively navigated a pathway. Having said that, we only want to proceed with an ASX listing when we think it's in the interest of shareholders, and we are mindful of share price and all those things in calibrating that decision. But it's something that we think we have the option to look at through 2024. And as I mentioned in the presentation, it's something that we continue to think about and something that I think we've made a lot of progress and probably effectively broken the back of in terms of being prepared for that.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. And for every question that I seem to answer, you're getting 2 or 3 coming through from the likes of Stuart, Kevin, Rory, and many others. And what I'll do is I'll provide you with all these questions. If there's anything else that we haven't covered or got through, we can add a written response at that time and publish them back to investors on today's call. So thank you once again to everybody for your engagement this afternoon. Sean, I know investor feedback is particularly important to you and to the board, and I'll shortly redirect the significant number of attendees on today's call to give you their thoughts and expectations. But I wonder, before doing so, if I may, Sean, just ask you for a couple of closing comments.
Yeah, well, look, firstly, I know we had, many hundreds of people who and shareholders who signed up to participate in the event, and with that, a huge number of questions that we can't really do justice to within the confines of today's meeting, but we'll certainly undertake to try to address them in a separate forum. But look, it's hugely satisfying to me to have this level of investor engagement, so thank you. I'd also like to thank my fellow directors and the team here at Greatland for what has been a tremendous 12 months. Hopefully it's conveyed to people just the huge excitement that we think Greatland presents and the value opportunity. And we're really looking forward to the year ahead, and I look forward to being in London in the new year, and we'll certainly try to have another, I'll prioritise a town hall meeting where we can get through just that great expanse of questions that we have. But thank you for everyone's time.
So before we finish, likewise, just thank you everyone for attending. It's been a really terrific turn up today, and we really do appreciate it. Excellent questions. A lot of them are really quite insightful. As Sean said, and as you've heard from your directors, we're really excited about the future. I particularly like that question about the plethora of opportunities that we face and how we give thought to prioritising them. You still have to solve it, but it's a wonderful problem to have. And it's the same reason that and the same facts that we see that makes us so excited. Look, I also am looking forward to coming over when we have a town hall with Sean, meeting many of you. And on that note, I think we will just actually hand over to you, Alex, to very briefly actually conclude the meeting itself.
Yes, I thank you once again for attending, and there'll be a follow-up through Investor Greet. So thank you, everybody.
That's great. Thank you to Alex and Clive in London, to Jimmy, and to the rest of the board in Australia. Can I please ask attendees not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the board can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the board of Greatland Gold, we'd like to thank you for attending today's annual general meeting, and good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to you all.